Welcome! You're listening to Making Relationships Work. We're a company focused on women and their marriage. We lead and teach women just like you how to grow into and access, whenever you need to, your wise woman's self. The part of you who is deeply connected to your purpose, your innate wisdom, and your husband and family. We teach women in marriages how to rebuild trust and connection, to work through conflicts no matter how deep, no matter how painful, and to lead your marriage to a place where the two of you experience marriage mastery. This podcast is about learning the systems and techniques that truly work to reconnect you back into your marriage so that you can experience the freedom that comes with a masterful marriage. Since this podcast is totally free, if you're getting tons of value and you want to support us and make sure that you get more of this good stuff, subscribe below and rate and review our podcast today. Now, on to the show. Hello, everybody. Hello, Women Making Marriages Work. What a huge day it is today as we are inviting applications for our very first enrollment coaches to join the team. So we're growing, we're in this wonderful, wonderful space. And each one of you in this community who is watching this video is a big part of our success and a big part of our trajectory. So if you haven't seen the post already, I'd encourage you to have a look at it. Hey, Leilani, can you hear me, my love? Can you let me know if you can hear my audio? Hello, sweetheart. Everybody, we are just really on fire here. We're ultra committed to serving women and their marriages and bringing back the light and the happiness. And so if you know somebody who would be a good fit for us, I want you to refer them. We want to find the exact right people for our team to go on and serve this community that we love so much. So on to tonight's show. We are talking about what happens when you are terrified of being divorced. Because when you are terrified of being divorced, how do you think you're going to show up in your marriage? This is our conversation tonight. It was inspired by Sarah, a post from earlier this week. And I know that our beautiful Jessie also wants to know more about it. And if there's two of you that want to know about it, I suspect there's like 200 of you that want to know about it. So tonight we're going to cover this topic. We're going to leave no stone unturned. And I'd like to encourage anyone that's watching this to leave any comments below. Hello, beautiful Jessie. Any comments below so that if you have a question, I can answer it live. And if I miss it, which sometimes I do because I'm talking and I can't read at the same time, then I'll come back later and I'll answer it for you. So let's get going, my loves. So what happens when you are terrified of being divorced? What does it do to your marriage? This is our question tonight, and it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful discussion. So let's talk about the idea of terrified first. And it might be that the word terrified doesn't resonate with you as deeply, perhaps, as fearful, anxious, frightened, scary, overwhelmed, fearful. Maybe I said fearful. And so it could be that it falls within a slightly smaller word, because the word terrified has a lot of kind of energy behind it. It has quite a connotation. And that's a really good place for us to start, because really what we're talking about is when I have a big negative feeling that I can access a lot, what does that do to how I show up in my marriage? That's what we're talking about. So when you are terrified, I'm going to use that word, but you can substitute it for another word if it's not quite right for you. But when you are terrified, what happens in your body? Let's talk about that. First of all, your body is going to feel tight. It's going to feel white-knuckled. It's going to feel constricted. You're going to feel kind of on edge. And you're going to feel like if you might want to take a smaller kind of part of your innate space. You might want to take up less space. And this is a really key understanding. When you are in a big emotion like being terrified, you will want to take up less space. And that's not because you're a bad person or that you're doing it wrong. It's because that emotion produces a behavior. You got it? So when the behavior is out there and big, it feels terrible. Your body is tight, tense, kind of stricken with fear. What bad thing is coming next? Yeah? And so you are responding from that place. And if you're responding from that place into something as sacred and precious as you and your life and you and your marriage, what does that do? This is what we're talking about today. And so your big feeling, your big negative feeling about marriage, you can feel it in your body. But I want you to take a minute now and think about the last time you saw somebody who was frightened of something. And I want you to bring that person into your mind. And I want you to think about how you knew that they were frightened. Now, they might have told you overtly, but if they didn't tell you overtly, or if you discount that for a second, how did you know? What were the telling signs? Maybe you could see it in their physiology. Maybe you could see it in the way they held their body, or the way they participated, or the way they didn't participate. And I want you to take that understanding of what it looks like in somebody else and what it feels like in you. And I want you to think, what does that do to me? And what does that do to my husband when I bring that energy into our marriage? And that's what we're talking about tonight. Because your terrifiedness, which is not a word, I know, but your terrifiedness of being divorced, or being threatened with the idea of divorce, or having a separation and not having things the way that they are, leads to a body that tells you that you're not safe. And that's really what's underneath this, is this sense that if I'm not married, if I'm in a divorce, everything is over, everything is awful. And not only does it do that, it makes you show up smaller, it makes you lose your certainty in yourself and the way that what's important to you and the way that you show up, and you lose your confidence, even to the point where you might lose, who am I, and what do I want, and what is my purpose, and what will I like to create? And so the very fact of having a fear that is in control of your life is going to lead to you feeling small and uncertain, with a lack of confidence. And you know what goes with a lack of confidence? Hand in hand is lack of self-esteem. So then you become somebody who becomes a pushover, because you're trying so hard to have the one thing happen that you don't want to have happen. And if we kind of talk about this and stretch it out a bit over a period of time, when you're not showing up as your powerful, loving, connected leadership self, who's full of courage and certainty and confidence, if you're not showing up in that space, the person you've married will say, what's happening to my friend? What's happening here? And it really unbalances the marriage. And it also means that both of you aren't getting the lessons that you need to be able to grow through, because marriage is a place for growth. Yeah. You can't grow together. And so you get stuck. And what happens when you get stuck? You stay there for 5 or 6 years, and then you need help. Well, actually, you need help earlier, but you come and get help about 6 years into this kind of crisis. And one of you is kind of out the door and the other one's trying to do something about it. And probably, if you're the one who's terrified of divorce, it's probably you that's trying to get help. Does that make sense? And it's you who needs to do the work to be able to grow and to remind yourself of the innate power that lives in you, so that you can have an influence over your life and your marriage. And it becomes this life and marriage that is aligned with you and your purpose and what you want for yourself and what you want for your family. And that is a very different feeling than living in that space of scarcity and living in that space of a big feeling like terrified. So let's talk about what it looks like when you're coming from a space of the opposite of terrified. So if we were to do a bridge from terrified all the way across, what would this word be? Well, my love, it will be a word like delightful, or powerful, or courageous, or happiness, or joy, or gratitude, or appreciation. Yes? So what if you had an appreciation of the sacredness of the marriage that you're in? What would that feel like? How would you show up differently? And so this is where we start to kind of unravel it, because somebody who's in appreciation of their marriage, who's kind of in the gratitude and the joy of what it's like to share your life with that special person, they are coming from a totally different perspective. They are coming from power. And I'm not talking about power that's outside of their space, not like a controlling power, but they're coming from a sense of purpose. This is my person and we're together and we work together as a team to grow and to create the life and marriage that we want. Quite different, yeah? So you come from a place of that power. You come from a place of connection. You come from a place of seeking help and wisdom and walking through the lessons that are required to grow. And the growth part is really important here, because this growth, whilst it can feel like you're walking through fire sometimes, because you're stretching, right? It's kind of like the analogy of building a literal muscle. I won't show you my actual muscles, so I wouldn't want to blow up the internet with how strong I am. But let's say we're building a muscle. When you're doing the repetitions at the gym, it hurts while those muscles kind of pull apart and then grow, and pull apart and then grow. And so it is when you're doing the growth work for who you are as a human. Now, every human has work to do. That's why we come here. Yeah. So you're married to a human who has work to do, and you are a human who has work to do. And your marriage is kind of a co-created reality that also has work to have to be done in it. And that's kind of the main thing here, is that it is totally wonderfully normal to work in your marriage. Yeah. So if you're terrified of being divorced, it's almost like you're terrified of doing the work. You're terrified of doing the growth. You're terrified of standing on your own 2 feet and saying, my love, I can see that you're upset right now. It's really going on for you. And holding that frame long enough so that, and kindly enough, so that they say, what work do I have to do here? And you might think, how do you get to that? Well, that, my friends, is what we call a masterful marriage. So there's kind of a spectrum here. We have like the disasters down here, which are the ones in crisis where people are looking for attorneys. They're looking to move out. They don't know how to do it. And then up the other end, we have a masterful marriage. And that masterful marriage is a place that feels amazing, and that the two people in it have built enough trust and commitment to know that whatever comes their way, whatever growth they have as an individual or that their marriage requires from them, they will show up and do the work. That's one of the signs of a masterful marriage. So being terrified of something, you can feel that doesn't fit in the masterful space, right? It fits down in the disasterful side of things. And that's really what we're talking about today. We're talking about, if you're down in this space down here, how do you move yourself up here? Now, the low-hanging fruit, of course, is watching my masterclass, because there are 5 skills in there that you can access straight away that will start to change everything. And so Leilani, of course, will pop in our masterclass link. The other thing is to get you really clear on what happened to invoke the feeling of being terrified. Was it from your family of origin? Was it from your sense of not belonging as a kid? Was it from your sense of wanting something but not knowing how to influence it and then feeling powerless? We want to get clarity on why you're sitting down this end of the scale when this end equally lives. Yes? So where there is this, there is also this. Where there is disaster, there is also master. And the growth part across, we've heard from so many of our wise women about how they've done it. It's totally doable, yeah? And so what is it that you need to do the work and have the commitment to live in a masterful space where you give up the idea of being terrified, and instead you say, as an identity for who I am, I want to be the wise woman who will show up and do the work, who will show up and be wise or create the wisdom from doing the work, who will show up and lead with courage and compassion and connection and calmness and kindness. And so then you know what you want and you know where you are, and then it's about the bridge. What is the bridge? What is the first right thing? The masterclass is always the first right thing in terms of skills. That's where I start to teach some skills-based stuff. And then we're ready. Because if you watch that masterclass and you think, I want to know how to do that, or I want to know why I can't do that, that clarification can come through the breakthrough call that we offer. Now, we've talked about those before. Leilani will put the link into our comments so you can go there and book a free breakthrough call if you want to. But essentially, what this whole Facebook Live is being able to identify where you are and what you want and what that gap is and what you need to make the decision to do it differently, to have a different life, to claim the identity of the wise woman who lives in that masterful marriage space, and to say, that is who I am. I've been stuck and trapped in these big negative emotions, but actually what also lives in me is the ability to access my wise woman. And when you realize that is in you, and that you've been accessing a part of you that is not serving you, and you have the choice to move into your wise woman, my loves, that is where transformation lives. That decision will change everything. And so I'm going to have a look now and see if there's any questions. So if you have any questions, now's the time to put them in the comments, because I want you to be able to know the answer to anything that you need right now. Because what we really want here is for you to claim your identity as a wise woman and to claim the life that you deserve to have. If you're living in the disaster end of a marriage, it's probably because you're living in big negative emotions. Maybe just you, maybe both of you. But if you want to claim this other end, it is totally possible. It's right here. And I want you to know what that is and how to do it. So let me just check and see if we've got any questions. Leilani's popped in the booking links and the masterclass. Looks like we're good to go. I love doing this with each of you. I love being in this community with you. I want you to post your questions in the comments, and I want to see you all this time on Monday night, where we'll be doing another live. Much love to all of you. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you soon. Bye, darlings.